So right now we have a problem, and I will show you what it is here. Our problem is that our bird is constantly playing the fly animation. And as you can see, it is completely flapping. Well, in our case, we only want it to flap when we hit that space button. We want it to play the flap animation. So we're going to set up our animator now with the scripting as well as the animation clip. So first things first, let's set up the animator and the animation script. So if you click over into the image folder, this is where you should see the Bird1 animator, and you should also see the flying clip down here. Go ahead and select the flying clip, and what I'm going to do is turn off the loop time. This is the number one thing. It will cause the animation to stop playing, looping constantly. It is, if I uncheck that box, it will only play once. The next thing to do is then double click on Bird1 and open up this bird animator. And what we're going to do is basically make a transition to this flying script. Now in this animator here that opens up, this is where I can contain all my different animations. So if I had multiples of these kinds of animations like run, jump, slide, crouch, I would drag these into here. And as you can see, I can drag in another flying animation if I wanted to. But simply what we need to do is Unity has both an entry and just this any state. And really what we want to do is we want to call this animation. So I'm going to right click from any state, and as you can see now this transition pops up, and I'm just going to click on flying. So from any state, the player object or the animator object can run the flying script. But this transition needs to be called, and it needs to be called through a parameter. And if you click on this transition, you'll see over here there's what they call a condition, and it says this list is empty. And of course we need to add a condition, but first we need a parameter. So coming back over to the animator, click this parameters, hit the plus sign up here. We're not in layers, we're in parameters, and I want you to add a trigger. Okay, a trigger then, and just call it fly. So what a trigger is it's like a Boolean variable, but it activates to true and then right away turns off. If I were to make a Boolean type parameter, I would have to manually turn it to off. Float and integer are just that. They are variable data types like we use in our coding, and the float and integer are good for like when you want to use the speed or adjust the speed of an animation playing. So float would be like maybe you're walking and it plays the animation slowly for a run, and then as soon as you have your speed of like an 8 or something like that as you're running, that animation will play faster. So I again just want to make one trigger that says fly. Now if I had multiple animations, I would probably have multiple triggers to trigger those animations to play. So once I make this parameter, I can now click over here on conditions, hit plus, and right away you add one, and it creates, allows you to have a drop-down menu and select. So if I had more than one parameter, I could select the correct condition. But basically what this means is from any state, if I call trigger fly, it's going to trigger the flying animation. So now if I hit play and kind of play my game, you'll see now the bird doesn't fly. It actually does play once, but it doesn't play again. So every time I hit the space bar, I should get my fly animation to actually play. So that's the next step. We need to go to our script. In the bird, just like a rigid body, we need to get access to our animator. So I'm going to make a variable of type animator and call it anim for short. And just like the RB, I'm going to say anim is equal to get component, in this case the animator. And once I have this connection, because it's private, so I have to make this physically connection. And here, not only then in my code, I simply just say anim.setTrigger, and the trigger in parentheses is going to be what my parameter was. In my case, it is fly. And you add that semicolon. So basically anim, call the command setTrigger, the word fly. If there is a trigger of fly, then this animation call will work. If it doesn't, then it's going to say, give you an error saying, nope, there's no such thing. Okay, so if you named yours flying or fly as your parameter, then you have to name it directly. If you use the capital letter, you have to have it named exactly in there. So I'm going to come over here, let it load, and in the scene now, notice when we are playing our game that the flappy animation, it's playing, but it's not really. Well, there's this weird thing that's going on with the animator and the transition. So this transition has some sort of kind of exit timing, and we really don't need that. So if you go to settings under here with the transition selected, you can actually set this fixed duration to off. And what that does is that allows you to interrupt an animation with another animation. In our case, the flying with itself. So now, if I play this, you'll kind of see it plays it really quick, but it does play it. If you feel like it, you can also go in to this animator here, select the flying clip itself, and you'll see the speed is set to 1. And 1 is just play full speed. You could do 0.5 at half speed, or in our case, maybe I think 0.75 is actually probably a good speed, so that you can kind of see it playing correctly. So there, now I feel like, to me, I feel like it's playing a little bit better. And that's it for the animator. So you have multiple scripts, you right click and you make transitions from certain animation clips and get those all attached, make some parameter triggers, and simply get the animator component and call these set triggers to flip between the animation sprites.